Hello everyone, and welcome back to AP Bio with AP Playground. Today we're covering topic 2.2, cell size. Objectives today are simple. We're focusing on the surface area to volume ratio and its effect on the exchange of materials between cells or organisms and the environment. We'll also be learning about how to calculate this ratio as well as the benefits of having a smaller cell in relation to this ratio. Suggested skills are visual representations 2D, represent relationships within biological models, including mathematical models, diagrams, flowcharts, and systems, and statistical tests and data analysis 5A, perform mathematical calculations, including mathematical equations in the curriculum, means, rates, ratios, percentages, and percent changes, and today we will be focusing on ratios. So first of all, how do we calculate the surface area to volume ratio? There are only a couple of math skills or equations you really need to know for this course, but this is one of the big ones. So first let's define some terms. Volume is the amount of space an object occupies, and surface area is the area of the outside part of an object. Now, I'm sure you've had to calculate both the volume and surface area for objects in math class before, but I'll go through the steps here. And the surface area to volume ratio is when you divide the surface area by the volume. And that's going to tell you the amount of surface area per unit of volume. So let's do some math over here. First of all, we've got this cube 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. For a cube, the formula for volume is length times width times height. And this goes for a rectangular prism as well. So 1 times 1 times 1 is just going to be 1 centimeter cubed. And now surface area means we need to calculate the area of one face of the shape and then add them up. So the area for this face is going to be 1 centimeter squared. However, a cube has 6 faces, meaning that the total surface area is going to be 6 centimeters squared. So now that we found our surface area and our volume, we can find our surface area to volume ratio, which in this case, dividing surface area by volume, dividing surface area 6 divided by 1. So our ratio for this cube of surface area to volume is a 6:1 ratio. For 1 unit of volume, we have 6 units of surface area. This can be done for the other sizes of the cube too. When we have a cube with side lengths of 2, we know that our volume is going to be 8 centimeters cubed because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And we know that the surface area is going to be 24 because one face is going to have an area of 4 and the cube has 6 faces. However, what you may notice is that we now have a different surface area volume ratio. 24 divided by 8 is the same as saying 3/1. The ratio for this cube with side lengths of 2 centimeters is a 3:1 ratio. So now for 1 unit of volume, there are only 3 units of surface area. And going even further to the last cube, where our side lengths are 3 centimeters, and we're looking at a volume of 27 and a surface area of 54 centimeters, we can see that the ratio has gone down to 2:1. So the conclusion that you should gain from this is that a smaller object, an object with a smaller volume, is going to have a higher surface area to volume ratio. There is going to be more surface area per unit of volume. So now let's do some more calculation practice, because if you have to calculate the surface area to volume ratio on the AP exam, you might not be given a cube, you might be given a sphere, a rectangular prism, or possibly even another shape, another three-dimensional shape. Now, you will be given, this is the equation sheet, you will be given this equation sheet on the exam, so all the equations are there, but let's just do some practice finding these values. And the very important thing to remember as well is to always include units, or else you will not get the point. So first of all, sphere. We see that the radius is 5 centimeters. We look at the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. R squared is 25, 4 times 25 is 100, and it's 100 pi, otherwise known as 314.16 centimeters squared. We look at the volume, that's going to be 4/3 pi r cubed. R cubed is 125, times 4/3 times pi is going to give us 523.6 centimeters cubed. Now, surface area to volume ratio, we can already see that the surface area is smaller than the volume. So our ratio here is going to be 0.6 to 1, which we can find by dividing the two values. We're able to see that for 1 unit of volume, there's only 0.6 units of surface area. So not a very high ratio. Now let's take a look at the rectangular prism. This is a little bit different from the cube because not all three sides are the same. The surface area, we could use this formula, or you know that there's going to be, this face right here is going to have an area of 24, and there are going to be 4 of those, plus the top and bottom, which each have 16, 4 times 4, and add them all up, and you get a surface area of 128 centimeters squared, always including those units. And then volume, it's just going to be 4 times 4 times 6, which is going to give you 96 centimeters cubed. And that ratio is going to end up being 1.33 repeated to 1. So it's a slightly better surface area to volume ratio than what we saw with the sphere, but not as good as those cubes that we had on the last slide. So hopefully this was helpful practicing calculating the surface area to volume ratio, and now let's go take a look at why it matters. So not only why the surface area to volume ratio matters, but why does it matter specifically for cell size? So we know that the plasma membrane allows for exchange of resources and energy, such as heat energy or thermal energy, between cells and the environment. It's the gate that allows things to go in and out of the cell. And for this to be an efficient process, the surface area of the plasma membrane must be large enough for this exchange, so a lot of things can be going in and out of the cell at the same exact time. And we know that as cells increase in volume, or in other words, size, there's less relative surface area. There's less surface area per unit of volume, and you need more resources because now you're having a larger cell, you've got a larger organism. So small cells have the best surface area to volume ratio. They've got the best amount of surface area per unit of volume, and they're also going to be the best at exchanging resources with the environment because of it. Because they're small, so they don't need that many resources, and at the same time, they've got a large surface area for the volume, so that they're able to do a really efficient process of resource exchange with the environment and with other cells. So that is the answer to the question, why are cells small? Now, there are some structures and strategies that cells have for an effective exchange of resources. So cells and organelles have structures that allow them to increase the surface area for the same amount of volume, basically increasing your surface area to volume ratio. And these are known as membrane folds. So if we look at some of the different cell organelles, this is only just a few, but there are more. If we look at the mitochondria, it's got cristae, which are these folds in the inner membrane. And what these allow is we're not making the mitochondria any bigger when we have these folds. The volume is kept the same. But because of these folds, there's more surface area, because now instead of there just being a straight line, things can only go in through here, things can only go in and out of the cell there. We now have this fold, so we've got surface area here, 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 here. We're creating basically more space for resource exchange. You can also see this in the Golgi apparatus with how many folds there are there. Now, cells also have structures that help them exchange resources with the environment. Two examples I'm going to give you here are, first of all, stomata, which are holes in plant cells, specifically in leaf cells, which allow gas and water exchange. You can see at the bottom of the cell, there are these stomata, which open and close and allow for water and gases to enter and exit the cell. And we also have vacuoles, which can fuse with the membrane to deposit or take in resources from the environment, or deposit resources into the environment. Because we know that vacuoles are just membrane sacs, and when they fuse with the membrane, they can open up to take more resources or deposit resources. So these are just some strategies for effective exchange of resources that cells employ. So here we go, that's the end of 2.3 cell size. You should now know how to calculate the surface area to volume ratio. You should know why cells are small, why you want a large surface area to volume ratio, and different ways organisms are able to efficiently exchange materials with the environment. Next up, and basically for the remainder of Unit 2, we're going to be talking all about the plasma membrane.